Welcome to this video on the Contax 137 cameras. The Contax 137 cameras were Contax's first SLRs with a built-in motor drive, and the cameras were aimed at the amateur market. They are manual focus aperture priority cameras that take lenses on the Contax Yashica line, made by Carl Zeiss, Yashica and other manufacturers. There were two different models of the Contax 137, the original Contax 137 MD Quartz, and later the Contax 137 MA Quartz that replaced it. Both are shown here. These cameras are well known for the body covering deteriorating, although it can be replaced, as it has been on one of these. Introduced in 1980, the first model of the Contax 137 was the Contax 137 MD Quartz. The camera has a quartz crystal to regulate all of its timing functions, including shutter speeds. The camera has a built-in winder capable of 2 frames per second for film advance only. The film has to be rewound into the cassette manually. The film speed range is 12 to 3200 ASA in 1/3 of a stop increments. Metering is centre weighted. Exposure compensation is provided plus or minus 2 stops in 1 stop increments. The range of shutter speeds is from 11 seconds to 1/1000th of a second. The shutter speeds are stepless. In addition to aperture priority automatic mode, bulb mode is supported and X mode is also supported. Shutter flash sync speed in X mode is 1/160th of a second. An exposure lock is provided which locks the shutter speed and can be used to facilitate manual exposure. Also, there is a battery check. A remote release port is also provided for a Contax electronic cable release and compatible accessories. There is also a depth of field preview button. Interchangeable focusing screens are not supported on this camera. The winder supports single frame advance. Or continuous advance. The camera also has an electronic self-timer. In addition, there is a PC sync port for use with a flash that does not use a hot shoe. There is a film feed indicator on the back of the camera. The camera also has a memo holder on the back. The viewfinder cover on the camera has a ring adapter that can hold round diopter lenses. On the front right of the camera can be seen 2 white plastic panels. These are used to illuminate the frame counter and aperture display in the viewfinder. Also at the bottom of the lens mount is the depth of field preview button. On the front of the camera is the timer indicator, and at the top of the lens mount is the lens release button. On the front left of the camera at the top is the PC sync socket, and at the bottom of the lens mount is the electronic cable release socket. On the top of the camera at the right hand side is the main on-off switch of the camera. This is also used to select the exposure lock by moving it further round. Moving the switch in the opposite direction activates the battery check function. On the extreme right of the top is a drive mode selector that is used to select either single frame advance or continuous advance, or to select the self-timer mode. At the back of the right hand side of the camera top is a cover for the film rewind release button. The cover rotates to uncover the rewind release button. On the top of the camera at the left hand side is the camera mode switch that selects either AE mode or X mode for flash or B mode. Rotating the ring around the film rewind crank selects the level of exposure compensation. The film speed is set by lifting the ring around the film rewind crank and then rotating it to set the desired film speed. Then the ring is dropped back down. The camera has built-in TTL flash metering for use with the Contax TLA20 and TLA30 flashes. Unfortunately, it is incompatible with TTL operation with later Contax flashes. It has fail-safe flash shutter speed synchronization when used with Contax flashes. This also sets the shutter speed when the flash is fully charged if the camera is in aperture priority automatic mode. The TLA30 is shown here fitted with its wide-angle panel that supports use with wide-angle lenses of up to 24mm focal length, although there was no Contax 24mm lens for this system, only a 25mm. Typically the wide-angle panel is missing from TLA30 flashes bought second-hand. It's a good luck finding one. Other flashes can be used in non-TTL mode. On the bottom of the camera is a tripod socket, just behind the lens mount. The bottom plate of the camera unlocks and the battery compartment is underneath. The camera takes 4 AA batteries. Rechargeable batteries work. Contax claimed that the Contax 137MD had the world's first true full information viewfinder. The page from the manual is shown here, and the viewfinder displays the aperture and shutter speed in use, along with a frame counter and an indication of whether the exposure compensation is in use. There was also a flash ready indicator when using Contax flashes, that also acts as a confidence light when using TTL mode. An improved version of the Contax 137 was introduced in 1982. This was the Contax 137 MA Quartz shown here. This added support for manual operation. The range of shutter speeds in auto mode was unchanged from the 137MD, as were the drive modes and self-timer, exposure lock operation and flash support, and the range of film speeds. The way the exposure compensation was set changed. It now has a lock button. This featured an improved winder supporting 3 frames per second. The film feed indicator is slightly different on the 137MA, as it has changed from a cross to a white bar. The exposure compensation now has a lock button next to the dial that needs to be pressed to activate exposure compensation. There are also click stops at 1/2 stop intervals. The mode dial has changed as it now supports shutter speed selection as well as AE, B and X mode. Manual shutter speeds are 1/1000th of a second to 1 second. In summary, in my experience, these cameras are reliable, handle well, and I found the control layout to work well. The viewfinder is very good and gives consistent results in bright light when focusing from either near or far with an f1.4 lens mounted if the microprism collar is used. The Contax 137 support the cable switch S and cable switch L types of cable releases. In addition, remote controllers such as the infrared controller S can be used with them. A magnifier or a right angle finder can be fitted to the viewfinder. In addition, they can be used with the auto macro bellows PC. The position of the cable switch can make it difficult to fit, and there is also no film auto rewind. I used a Contax 137MA as my main camera for over 20 years. This one shown, and never really felt the need to get a replacement. That says a lot. They can do most of the things that I need, and I found them very easy to use. They're limited by when they were built, and the low maximum shutter speed, limited metering modes, lack of autofocus and lack of program modes may be an issue for some people. But within the limitations, they work very well. I would be careful to find one that is in good condition if considering buying one, and would consider getting it serviced and the light seals checked, and possibly the body recovered. I prefer the 137MA over the 137MD, as I like to have the option to use manual exposure. It is not needed that often, but does occasionally need to be used. My first Contax 137 MA Quartz still works.